Eric Valores was not unfamiliar with the peculiar and the unknown, having spent much of his career decoding the cultures and languages of distant worlds. Yet, the invitation that lay before him on his cluttered desk in the dim light of his office was unlike anything he had ever encountered. It was not sent electronically, nor was it spoken through the usual diplomatic channels. Instead, it was a physical document, made of a shimmering, fabric-like material that changed colors as it moved in the light. The script was elegant, flowing like the rivers of the luminescent algae on Eridani IV, glowing subtly in the darkness of his room. "You are cordially invited to the Feast of Harmonies," it read, "to partake in the celebrations of the Great Alignment as hosted by Her Majesty, Queen Illyria of Thalox." His curiosity piqued, Eric turned the invitation over in his hands. Thalox, a name spoken with reverence and mystery in the academic circles Eric frequented. It was a planet shrouded in secrecy, its inhabitants known for their reclusiveness and their profound psychological and philosophical insights. The few who had visited Thalox spoke of a society where art, science, and spirituality were so interwoven that every aspect of life was an act of creation. Deciding to accept the invitation, Eric prepared for the journey. His ship, the Linguist, was a small but capable vessel, ideal for the solo voyages he often undertook. As he set the coordinates for Thalox, he felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was an opportunity of a lifetime, to witness a culture that few humans had ever seen. And yet, the purpose of the feast and the nature of his invitation remained cloaked in mystery. The journey through hyperspace was uneventful, and as the Linguist emerged into Thalox's star system, the view that greeted Eric was breathtaking. Thalox was a jewel of a planet, with swirling blue and green oceans visible from space, punctuated by vast continents that bore vivid colors of flora unlike anything seen on Earth. As Eric's ship descended into the atmosphere, he was struck by the architectural marvels that began to come into view. The buildings were colossal, sculpted from materials that reflected the planet's vibrant skies and seas. They spiraled gracefully towards the heavens, with bridges and platforms that floated without support, defying the laws of physics as understood by humankind. Upon landing, Eric was greeted by a delegation of the Loxians, their appearances as stunning as their architecture. They were tall and slender, with skin that shimmered with the same iridescence as their buildings. Their eyes were deep and expressive, conveying a sense of wisdom and calm that put Eric at ease. "Welcome, Eric Valores." One of the delegates spoke, her voice musical yet carrying an authority that demanded respect. "I am Elra, the emissary of the court. The Queen awaits your presence at the feast tonight. Please, allow us to escort you to your accommodations and prepare you for the evening celebrations." Eric followed, taking in every detail of his surroundings. The air was fragrant with exotic scents, and the sounds of the city were a symphony of harmonious tones. He was led to a suite that overlooked a panoramic view of the capital city, the setting sun casting long shadows over the intricate patterns of the cityscape. As he prepared for the feast, Eric's mind raced with questions. What was the purpose of this feast? Why was he, a human, invited to such a significant event? What would be expected of him? Little did he know. His role in the night's proceedings would be far greater than he could have imagined, and the feast would be only the beginning of his extraordinary journey into the heart of the Loxian society. Eric dressed in the ceremonial garb provided by his hosts, a flowing robe of shifting colors similar to the invitation, which adapted its hues to match his mood and the surrounding lights. He followed Elra through the sprawling corridors of the palace, each turn and archway presenting a new marvel of the Loxian artistry, from glowing tapestries that seemed to tell a story to statues that subtly moved as if alive. The grand hall where the feast was to be held was a breathtaking spectacle. The ceiling was a vast expanse of crystal through which the twin moons of Thalox and the galaxy beyond shone brightly, illuminating the guests in a celestial glow. The tables were arranged in a circular pattern, with no distinct head, promoting a sense of equality and unity among the attendees. As Eric took his seat, He found himself between Princess Leora and Princess Morel. Leora possessed a serene grace, her gaze thoughtful and deep. Morel, on the other hand, was more outwardly engaging, with a lively sparkle in her eyes and an easy smile. Both princesses welcomed Eric warmly, expressing their fascination with human culture and their eagerness to learn from him. The feast commenced with a musical introduction that resonated through the very bones of all present. The Thalaxians used instruments Eric had never seen, producing sounds that were both haunting and exhilarating. The first course was served, and Eric was surprised to find that the dishes were as much a visual and olfactory experience as they were gastronomic. The food changed colors and textures as it was eaten, each bite releasing new flavors and aromas. Princess Leora leaned over to explain, "Our cuisine is designed to evoke memories and emotions. Each dish corresponds to a specific feeling or experience from our history. We share this to give insight into our culture." As Eric tasted a dish that shimmered with a light blue hue, he suddenly felt a wave of calm and clarity wash over him. It was like diving into a cool, clear ocean. Princess Morel laughed softly at his expression. That one represents tranquility, a reminder of the peace that prevails during the Thalaxian dusk. The conversation turned to topics of philosophy, art, and science, with each princess sharing insights into their world's advancements and challenges. Eric shared stories of Earth, its diverse cultures, and his travels to other star systems, which seemed to captivate both Leora and Morel. As the feast drew on, a more robust dish arrived, this one dark and pulsating with a rich, deep red. As Eric took a bite, his senses were flooded with a mixture of strength and passion. He felt invigorated, filled with a powerful sense of purpose and vitality. "This dish," Morel explained, "is inspired by the fiery heart of our planet, a core of energy that fuels all life here." It was during this high point of the feast that Leora leaned closer to Eric, her voice a whisper amid the symphony of conversations. "You are the chosen one, Eric. Tonight, you will join us in the trial of Ascendancy." Her words were cryptic, yet they carried a weight that suggested this was not merely part of the evening's entertainment, but something much more significant. Eric's mind raced as he tried to grasp the meaning of her words. The feast around him seemed to slow, the sounds and sights blurring into the background as he focused on the princess's intent gaze. What did it mean to be the chosen one? What was the trial of Ascendancy? And why him? Before he could ask any questions, the feast concluded, and he was promptly ushered by Leora and Morel towards a secluded part of the palace. The night was far from over, and Eric was about to discover the true nature of his invitation, one that would plunge him into the depths of Thalaxian society and its hidden machinations. Eric followed Princess Leora and Princess Morel through the sprawling corridors of the palace, each step taking him deeper into the heart of Thalaxian mysteries. The air grew cooler as they descended beneath the surface, into an ancient part of the palace seldom seen by outsiders. The walls here were lined with stones that pulsed with a soft light, illuminating the path and casting eerie shadows. Finally, they reached a massive door carved with intricate symbols that Eric guessed were ancient Thalaxian script. It swung open silently at their approach, revealing a chamber vast and round, with a domed ceiling depicting the cosmos as seen from Thalax. In the center of the room stood a triangular platform, and it was here that Leora and Morel led him. "The trial of Ascendancy is an ancient rite," Leora explained, her voice echoing slightly in the vast chamber. "It is a mental and spiritual connection, formed between individuals chosen by destiny. Through it, we shall share thoughts, memories, and emotions, melding our minds into one." Eric felt both honored and apprehensive as he stepped onto the platform with the two princesses. They each took a corner, forming a triangle. As they settled into place, the symbols on the floor began to glow, casting a network of light that linked the 3 points and enveloped them in a luminous triangle. Morel smiled reassuringly at Eric. "Do not fear. You were chosen because your mind holds a rare capacity for understanding, both intellectual and emotional. This will help us find harmony in the connection." As the ritual began, Eric felt a tingling sensation at the base of his skull, spreading quickly through his body. His vision blurred for a moment, and when it cleared, he was not only seeing the chamber but also glimpses of memories. Not his own, but those of the princesses. He saw Thalox through their eyes, the pressure of their royal duties, the secluded beauty of their world, and the deep loneliness that came from their positions. Leora's memories were filled with diplomatic meetings and cultural ceremonies, her mind always analyzing, always planning. Morel's were more chaotic, spirited, showing her rebellious streak and her passion for Thaloxian art and music. As their memories washed over him, Eric shared his own, his travels, his studies, and the sheer thrill of discovery that drove his work. The connection deepened, and they began to navigate through each other's fears and aspirations. Eric used his anthropological training to adapt, finding patterns and meanings in the princess's thoughts that helped him steer the connection toward empathy and understanding. The bond between them strengthened, their thoughts harmonizing like a well-conducted symphony. But just as Eric was beginning to find comfort in the melding minds, a dark undercurrent tugged at his consciousness. It was a hidden memory from Morel, one tinged with darkness and a fierce desire for change. He saw a vision of the feast, but from a different angle. A plan unfolding, the feast as a facade for a deeper scheme to overthrow their mother, the queen. The revelation hit Eric like a wave, pulling him back into his own mind with a jolt. He looked at Morel, whose eyes now flickered with a mix of fear and defiance. Leora, sensing the shift, paused, her expression one of concern. "The trial is revealing more than anticipated," Leora said, her voice steady but her eyes searching Eric's. "We must trust in the process, Eric. Our minds are open now. There is no hiding from what we truly seek." Eric realized then that the ritual was not just a merging of minds, but a test of loyalty and truth. As they resumed, he found himself at a crossroads. Continue the emotional and intellectual battle to align their wills or confront the looming threat of betrayal that could tear their newly formed alliance apart. The trial of Ascendancy was far from over, and its outcome would shape the future of Thalox itself. The resumed melding of minds in the trial of Ascendancy felt different for Eric after uncovering the hidden intentions of Princess Morel. The vibrant strands of thoughts and memories they had been sharing now seemed tinged with darker hues, reflecting the underlying tensions that the revelation had brought to light. As they progressed, Eric found himself wrestling not just with the philosophical and cultural exchanges, but also with a moral dilemma that tested his integrity and his understanding of Thaloxian politics. Leora, sensing the disturbance, sought to maintain the harmony of their triad. She guided their thoughts towards the deeper values of their people, unity, wisdom, and the progression of their civilization. Yet, even her noble intentions couldn't mask the palpable shift in dynamics caused by Morel's secret ambitions. As the ritual deepened, Eric was drawn more into Morel's memories and saw the layers of her plan unfold. He saw her meetings with dissenters, her quiet gatherings with influential figures who also favored change, and her nights spent in restless contemplation. The vision was clear. Morel saw her mother's rule as stagnation, a failure to evolve and adapt, which she believed was leading Thalox towards a slow decline. Caught in this torrent of revelations, Eric struggled to maintain his own identity. His training had taught him to be an observer, a chronicler of cultures without becoming entangled in their internal affairs. Yet, here he was in the very heart of a royal conflict, his role far exceeding the bounds of an academic. As the ritual drew towards its climax, the physical room seemed to react to their strained connections. The glowing symbols on the floor flickered erratically, and the cosmic depiction on the dome above seemed to swirl with a stormy intensity. The atmosphere was charged with a blend of potential and danger. Morel finally addressed the unspoken tension, her voice echoing with a mix of defiance and plea. "Eric, you see the truth now. Thalox needs change, and I need your support. With your unique perspective and your bond with us, you could help us guide Thalox to a new era." Eric, grappling with the weight of her request, responded with cautious diplomacy. Princess Morel, I understand your desires for your people, and they are noble. But true change must come with the consent of all. Coerced upheaval could lead to chaos. It was then that the chamber was suddenly filled with the sound of alarms. The ritual was abruptly interrupted as royal guards stormed into the chamber. The queen, having been alerted to the subversive currents flowing through the trilet, had decided to intervene. The guards surrounded them, their weapons not drawn but clearly ready. The queen, regal and imposing, entered the chamber. Her gaze was a mix of sorrow and stern resolve as she looked upon her daughters and the human who had unexpectedly become a pivot in her reign. Eric Valoris, she addressed him directly, her voice resonant with authority. You have been brought into matters you should never have needed to face. I regret the position my daughters have placed you in. Now, I must ask you, what have you learned of our ways? What counsel would you give a queen whose children seek her throne? Eric stood, the weight of the moment pressing down upon him. His reply would not only decide his fate, but could potentially influence the future direction of Thalox. As he met the queen's gaze, he knew that his words needed to bridge the gap between tradition and change, between a mother's love and her kingdom's needs. The chamber fell silent, waiting for his response, a response that would echo through the annals of the Loxian history. As the silence in the chamber stretched taut, Eric carefully formulated his response, aware that his words carried immense weight. He turned to face the queen, maintaining a respectful tone that bridged diplomacy and honesty. Your Majesty, every society thrives on balance. Change is inevitable, but it must be approached with wisdom and wide consensus. Perhaps this situation reveals a need for dialogue between the generations, between tradition and innovation. The queen listened intently, her expression unreadable. Eric continued, in my time among your people, I've witnessed a profound depth of culture and intelligence. But even the wisest societies can benefit from introspection. Maybe it's time for Thalox to reflect on its path forward, to ensure it encompasses the hopes of all its people. There was a moment of palpable tension as the queen considered his words. Then, nodding slightly, she turned to her daughters. Leora, Morel, your actions have risked much, but perhaps they have also opened a door to necessary conversations. We will explore these issues further in council, not in secrecy. Turning back to Eric, she added, and you, Eric Valoris, will be part of this dialogue as a mediator. Your unique perspective will be invaluable. As the guards lowered their weapons and stepped back, Leora and Morel exchanged a glance. Relief mixed with uncertainty flickered between them. The crisis seemed to be defused, but the road ahead would be complex and fraught with the challenge of integrating new ideas with the staunch traditions of Thalox. As days turned into weeks, Eric found himself deeply involved in the political and cultural fabric of Thalox. The council meetings were intense, with representatives from various factions within the society voicing their opinions and concerns. Eric's role as a mediator was not merely ceremonial. He was actively helping to shape the future of an alien civilization. One particularly heated session focused on the technological restrictions that had long been a cornerstone of the Loxian policy. Morel advocated for selective integration of advanced technologies that could prevent environmental degradation, a significant concern given Thalox's delicate ecosystems. Eric supported her views, suggesting pilot programs to demonstrate the benefits while maintaining safeguards. Leora, on the other hand, championed the cause of cultural preservation, arguing that too much change could dilute their identity. Eric worked to find a middle ground, proposing educational initiatives that would prepare the populace for changes without overwhelming traditional values. The queen observed these developments, her demeanor a mix of cautious optimism and inherent skepticism. Over time, however, she began to see the potential in the unfolding changes, guided by Eric's diplomatic approach. Amidst these political and cultural shifts, the bond between Eric, Leora, and Morel deepened. They spent long hours discussing not only policies, but also their personal visions for Thalox. Through these conversations, Eric gained a deeper appreciation of the complex interplay between individual desires and societal needs. However, just as Thalox seemed on the verge of a peaceful transformation, a new challenge arose. A faction opposed to the changes began to gather strength, fueled by fears of losing their heritage and identity. Protests erupted, and the palace was once again thrust into a state of alert. Eric, now deeply invested in the fate of Thalox, proposed a public forum, a chance for all voices to be heard. The Queen, seeing the wisdom in this, agreed, and preparations were made for a gathering that would be broadcast across the planet. As the day of the forum arrived, Eric stood beside the Queen and her daughters, looking out over the crowd of thousands, with millions more watching through various media. The air was charged with a potent mix of anticipation and apprehension. "This is the moment of truth," Eric whispered to himself, feeling the weight of his responsibility. "Today, we either bridge our differences or watch them divide us further." With the whole planet watching, Eric took the stage, ready to guide Thalox through perhaps the most crucial dialogue in its history. The outcome of this forum would not only determine the future of Thalox, but also define Eric's legacy among these alien people. The public forum was set against the backdrop of the palace's grandest hall, transformed into a space where every citizen of Thalox could feel a part of the historic dialogue. Eric stood at the podium, his heart beating with the gravity of the moment, but steadied by his deep commitment to help forge a path forward for Thalox. As the forum commenced, Eric introduced the purpose of the gathering: to discuss openly the changes proposed and to address the concerns and hopes of the Thaloxian people. His voice echoed through the hall and across the airwaves, reaching every corner of the planet. The session began with presentations from various factions. Scientists, cultural guardians, young innovators, and elders spoke, their speeches reflecting the diversity of thought and emotion among the populace. Morel spoke passionately about the need for technological advancement to sustain their planet's health, using examples from Eric's shared knowledge of Earth and other civilizations. Leora countered gently, urging the importance of retaining the essence of their cultural identity, suggesting ways to integrate new technologies that honored their traditions. Eric facilitated the discussions, guiding the conversations with questions and summaries that helped clarify the stakes and possibilities. His role as an outsider provided a unique perspective that often helped bridge gaps in understanding, highlighting shared values over conflicting interests. As the forum progressed, the mood shifted from apprehension to a cautious optimism. Ideas were exchanged not only about policies, but also about implementation strategies that would involve all sectors of society. The Queen, watching the proceedings, found herself moved by the passion and earnestness of her people. She saw, perhaps for the first time, the real potential for a harmonious transition that could satisfy both the desire for progress and the need for stability. The climax of the forum came when a young Thaloxian scientist proposed a hybrid solution, a cultural renaissance festival combined with a showcase of new technologies. This idea captured the imagination of the crowd, bridging the gap between the old and the new in a celebration of Thaloxian heritage and future possibilities. As the forum concluded, applause filled the hall, and for the first time in many cycles, there was a sense of unity and purpose among the Thaloxians. The Queen stepped forward, her expression one of renewed vigor and hope. "Today, we have laid the groundwork for a future built together, not in shadows, but in the light of our combined strengths and dreams. Let this day mark the beginning of a new chapter in our history." In the days that followed, Eric worked closely with Leora, Morel, and the council to set the plans in motion. The festival was scheduled, committees were formed, and Eric's temporary visit extended indefinitely, his role as a mediator becoming a permanent ambassadorial position. As Thalox began its journey towards a balanced integration of innovation and tradition, Eric's thoughts often returned to Earth. He documented his experiences and insights, sending them back to his home planet, where they sparked new discussions about cultural diplomacy and the ethics of interstellar intervention. The story of Eric Valoris, the human who joined an alien feast only to discover he'd been chosen to help satisfy the hopes of a queen's daughters, became a legend not only on Thalox but across the stars. It served as a testament to the power of understanding and dialogue, and as a beacon of hope for other worlds navigating the delicate paths of change. As Eric watched Thalox's twin moons rise over the horizon, he felt a deep contentment. Here, among the stars, he had found a new purpose, helping to weave a tapestry of unity from threads of diverse thoughts and dreams. Thalox, with all its complexity and beauty, was now his home too, a home where humanity's reach and respect for others had paved the way for a harmonious future.